once again we have to ask ourselves, what is the point of a channel like this? You know, I've been watching booktube videos lately, and even I'm like, how much of this stuff can anyone watch? Like, go read. But I just read an interesting quote that echoes something else in my mind. Yeah, I'll find it later. Check this out. This is a really cute kitten my daughter Willow just rescued. We always ended up with cats over here. Oh, this one is so cute, so little. I'm a little worried. Hasn't drank any water or eaten any food since being here. But has purred and let me pet this little being. What a cute face, right? I mean, what? How do you exist? You're amazing. So yeah, my daughter Willow's trying to find someone to adopt this kitten. Look at that, she's got a pyramid on her face, or he, can't tell yet. But I was thinking of calling this kitty Sphinx because of that cool facial motif. This cat's amazing. If you live in Albuquerque, this one's gonna be a winner. But it's so scared still. Just sits in the back of the box, shivering, eyes open, like all night long, I think. Occasionally falling into a sleep-like trance. This has been a little watchful street cat. But he or she has purred sometimes. And I've been petting little Sphinxy here. And has really seemed to enjoy the petting and the scritches and the ear and paw rubs. That's an A+ kitten right there. Hey, speak to the public, kitty. Grismo, get out of there. Grismo. Willow just caught this cat's two siblings also, and then they're being kept at her school, so I'm going to take this kitten to her in a couple of hours. Grismo, get out of there. She just goes right in there and ignores your food and water. I'm trying the food and water right now. But anyway, if we were to continue with the kids' bookcase right now, we'd start getting into fairy tales, and that'll be a whole section. But I think something else has been bugging me in this hallway. Bugging, but I feel like I should have a bit on it. We looked at this anthologies case. It was a well-viewed video, I thought. Weird. What's the point of this channel? I mean, like, I can't even be mad at people for not subscribing. I'm like, it's weird. I think people that like strange long-form narratives of the lives of others as filtered through a topic. Yeah, that's my audience. Ha ha ha. But anyway, hidden in this anthologies drawer is another book section. Here's an ancient record as well. Oh yeah, alright. It's the booklets section. You know, I have all these staple-bound books, and I'm like, might as well put them in the same place. But some of them ended up staying in their sections, and so I will look at those as well after I look at this drawer full. Booklets. Do booklets have anything in common? Well, they're less local and niche than zines, but they're more so than a lot of mainstream topics, you know. A booklet will often be like about a state park or some small aspect of some regionally popular topic, or not for public consumption, or for smaller consumptions like church crowds or something. Ever the aesthetic freak. I'm like, that needs something on top of it. What do you mean it needs something on top of it? It's in a drawer. Shh. This examination of the book collection for me has really become like a bonsai tree-like experience, just ever pruning and looking at the collection. Stuff I used to do anyway, but now I'm doing it really conscientiously and like looking at it. Camus said, how do we make our actions matter? By paying attention all the while. In the plague. It's also become to me a little bit an externalization of a lot of the thought that's going into my book. Shadows of Clouds on the Mountains. Book 1 of 2, I need to finish that this year. I've got 7 interviews left to do for it if I do it the way I want to do it. Why has this stymied me so? I think what I'm due to do, but I'm just so sick of this thing, is a complete and thorough reread of it all. Like, I bet there's still a few typos lurking in there. I can think of one maybe. There's some elements I'm not allowing myself to change. I mean, I've been working on this thing for 15 years so far. So you like become a different person over 15 years. So I'm really like collaging my own voices on this, you know? Like sometimes I'll see a bit of Like, I have one essay that draws in journal entries from the late 90s, and I can tell those paragraphs. Like, I wrote that really close to that. I hate that they broke the blinds this way, but I think this little lookout's very cute. You don't need to open the blinds, I guess. We're talking about booklets, huh? Oh, life. But let's see, this is a little bit of an examination, an anthropological scrutiny of an element of a collection, someone's available reading material. Like, if you think about the most mundane YouTube videos as being invaluable, like 10,000 years in the future, say we have good record keeping and there's some sort of technological life between now and then, nobody will think any of it was worthless, because it would all be valuable as a record, probably. Like, I enjoy some pretty not technically very great movies from different times, that just because they were filmed like where I've lived. A lot of Albuquerque movies. Like, there's this movie, Making It, and I'm like, not a great movie, but that's the apartment complex right across the street from where I lived for a long time. Here's driving through a whole part of town in the 70s, like around Roosevelt Park. So what do we have here? The Constitution. That's okay. JK. Pretty important document. I think I've read this. I've read this before. Of course, you forget these things. And is it even good that America has a constitution? Like, England doesn't have a constitution. They just kind of like have an agreed upon set of ideas. It's like a fluid, abstract idea more. Oh, this also has the Declaration of Independence in it. Yeah, classic founding American documents. It's good to know that stuff. I am interested in America. America is interesting, actually. It's a little upstart bargain bin country. Everybody clattering here from everywhere. And these amazing indigenous nations covering the continent, and there was just such a collision. Europe was just, even if everybody from Europe had been cool, and they weren't, they brought with them so many diseases and things that just wiped out the people here. Contact was deadly for people. Europeans were Odysseus. Everyone that tried to help them suffered. And all at the hands of Baby Squirrel and her ruthless sidekick, Sweet Pea. Sorry, the cats were there, but that's not appropriate. Yeah, it's good to have this around. Maybe just its presence will make me read it sometime. Then I'll get all patriotic. I don't know. What is there to be patriotic to? I'm definitely patriotic to the land. I get that. Go North America. Great continent. 10 out of 10. Forests, rivers, mountains, deserts, everything beautiful. Perfect. The coasts, of course. Canyons. And a lot of ideas that have emerged from America are good. Maybe if, as Americans, and I'm speaking, of course, to just the small 97% majority of you that YouTube tells me are from America, as in the United States of America. I don't know, what if we could treat the country kind of like a figure from a show who starts out really, really problematic and then becomes better, has an arc, recognizes that at the core of this or that there were some good ideas, even if the road to true equity and freedom was super rocky. The problem, I think, a fundamental problem with America, just like on a story level, is that, well, for one, it wants to get better without recognizing or atoning for the past and the imbalances it created and the foundational traumas that it built itself on. So it's probably going to always struggle. But it's also this weird, I think the government is just as corrupt as any government now. I really feel like a central turning point, and Gary Wills writes about this in his book Bomb Power really well. It gave away, but it would be over here. The infrastructure of the Manhattan Project created for the first time an infrastructure of secrecy that the government had over the people, and they've never given it back since then. The CIA, the NSA, these things were like basically born out of that moment and realizing that mass conspiracies could be done against the American people. The atomic bomb was a huge secret thing. And since that time, the CIA has overthrown 200 governments. In 1947, they gave In 1947, they gave a letter to Truman saying, we're not going to be accountable to you anymore. I mean, how is that not a coup? Are there good ideas in the Constitution? Sure. Should its mega fans chill out a little bit and realize that if it was a perfect document, it wouldn't have amendments? And, let's think about how this thing's interpreted. And also, the Founding Fathers were not like magic. They didn't do everything right. They were key figures in a big thing, but as much led up to them as, has led up to us. I'm glad I own that. I wonder if this was given out by that's from a teacher's free pile in my long-term subbing job. Revival Gems #2. Yeah. I personally was a huge fan of Revival Gems #1, and I was like, they need to get a sequel out now. I remember it very well. It was 1927, and I was ranting about that as I walked by a shop window, and there it was. Snap this baby up. Lucky for me, I had a dime in my pocket. I was feeling real rich that day. Sadly, the cover has detached itself here, but sometimes you gotta apply a little bit of tape or just ignore a problem for a while. I thought this was shape note singing, I thought when I first got it maybe, but it's not. Pretty cool. This was in the antique section, but I'm like, it's kind of just not getting seen there. It's pretty amazing. 1936. Yeah, these booklets, I don't know, I think grocery stores used to have like spinner racks of like a bunch of years that people were commonly born in. And these were common little bits of nostalgia and lore. I mean, it's a cool idea, TBH. Why not? It's a little light on the content, but yeah, oh look, it's to from date. The richness of life lies in the memories we have forgotten. That's cool. A strange, eerie echo to it. I was really researching the year 1936 when I was writing about the murder of the journalist Carl Taylor. Probably not mentioned in this because it's pretty obscure. But it was a big news story that went around, but it's more forgotten probably than something like this would have. But yeah, in 1936, Carl Taylor was killed. The Penitentes, a religious sect, was blamed. Listen to my podcast, City on the Edge, wherever you can find it, iTunes, Spotify, for 2 episodes on that, including a many thousand-word piece I wrote on the subject. I think it's 10K. But 36 was kind of an interesting year, The Depression. There's another one, Pages of Time. This one looks a little better. Black and white, but maybe a little denser. 1936. Oh, have any of you ever seen the old Adam Films videos? John Mulaney's in some of them. I love the 30s. It's so funny. It's like a VH1 decade hype show, but about the Depression with comedians playing roles. Very funny. Very hard to find, too. Oh, this goes with the fridge poster. Got it from a teacher pal recently. So if you ever want to find out more. Here's the famous fridge poster. Feels like part of a further deconstruction of the book collection to put books and their images on the walls. I like it. It's like, what is the line between literature and decoration? What? Oh, the ruins of Copan. Wow, what an experience it was going to those in Guatemala. Incredible. I mean, there are these trees that were like, that's the oldest tree I've ever seen. And they'd be growing on these pyramids. Ledgy, carved pyramids. I mean, just so striking. Incredible. I've had this since being in Guatemala. This is from going to that place. That's cool. I'm glad I had this. Wild What Survives in a Collection. Selling Your Ideas. Here's a beautiful book. I feel like this has maybe been framed in my collection before and on a wall. Look at that great logo. That's so Lumen. Severance reference. Scranton, Pennsylvania. International Correspondence Schools. In office canon, some of the characters probably had family that subscribed to this program. if that stuff was real. Selling your ideas. I actually could see this being a prop in a show or something like that. It's cinematic. Maybe I should write a show around it. Selling your ideas. What if I read this and really benefited from its old-fashioned dose of truth-telling? Maybe that's why I hang on to it. Just got this one from a thrift store. Having walked across the Everglades and had their deep ancientness soak into my bones, and its shadowiest glens of cypress knees and mangrove groves, Jurassic Park times 10 million, alligators and vultures and creatures everywhere. I remember hiking in there for the first time and knowing we'd be wading in water for days, and on the Florida Trail, and that's a group that just hiked across all of Florida right there. I was taken in Alabama. But walking in there, and this guy was walking out, an older guy with like walking sticks and a fanny pack, and he was all, there's 6 different kinds of snake in there that can bite you underwater without you even seeing them. Have fun. As if to discourage us. And I remember my friend flipped his sunglasses down, and we were all like, yep. And we just walked into the Florida Everglades. It was awesome. What a magical world. I feel like I was in that book Little Big, or like some place where the forest is bigger on the inside than on the outside. The Everglades are truly magical. What I didn't realize at the time was that, was that the Everglades are the world's, well, I knew this part, slowest, widest river. And they're always flowing, and they flow out of Lake Okeechobee, which is like a Great Lake-sized, almost, lake. It's the hole in the middle of Florida that you see on maps and satellite photos. Even like a globe would have Lake Okeechobee on it. It's big. Yeah, it's there. It's that, it doesn't look as round as I remember it, but there it is. Okeechobee. That kitten is scared, and you've been nothing but rude and hissy. Don't appreciate it. Pretty sure Squirrel was just asking me to put her up here, and now she seems to be complaining about it. What do you want, kitty? If I was still writing my chapter /7 episode miniseries script, What We Found When We Walked Across America, episode 1 is titled Florida. I would definitely read this ASAP. But my head is not there now. Like, we walked the Florida Keys, we walked Big Cypress Swamp, we walked the Everglades, 10,000 Islands, probably saw them. Now, this could be in the writing section, as words like so many nimble servitors trip about him at command. Milton, this used to be above my desk, but it's old, it's like 100 years old. I mean, PHB, come on. Still, you can fool some people, but not me. Yeah, I got one of those PHBs, you know? Hey, 1936. It was a year that, maybe it was a particularly active year. But this should be in the writing section, but it wouldn't stand out there. Let it stay in the booklet section. The booklet section can be a little diverse. Unless I have a bunch on one topic, which, okay, that's one on writing. Yeah, this should probably be in the kitchen. Let's see. No, it's kind of interesting, though. It's old-timey folk cures and stuff. See, okay, here's something that the booklet can do. Such folks might not know a zine, and they might have more to say than a zine would typically contain. They're just not part of the zine community connected to the zine aesthetic. But that's very much, yeah, reminds me of some zines. But it's for pioneer stuff. Did you know you can eat an onion and it will fix your blood? It's actually true. Oh, yeah, this is a McCarthyite piece of propaganda shared. It's confusing because it's got like a Revolutionary Press ad on the back, but it seems like anti-communist. Oh yeah, there's some really gory photos in there. It's a weird thing to have. 50s, I think. They didn't put it on there, probably not wanting to date it. Oh, 1967. Anyone want to buy this? Any collectors out there? I need some money. You could PayPal me. I would send it to you with care and a provenance letter. That goes for pretty much anything ever seen on this channel. Oh, 35 years of hit tunes. Looks like that needs retaped. I see a little tape in there already. Who doesn't love a hit tune? And 1917, that was a great year for it. Like the Bells of St. Mary's, that sappy Bing Crosby thing. Oh, this is before him, though. That movie, The Bells of St. Mary's, is interesting, though, because you see the Pledge of Allegiance without the Under God line in it before that was added. Unwatchable besides that, I think. But, oh, look at that. Darktown Strutter's Ball. Yikes. Jump, Jim Crow. Hey, but look at that. P.G. Woodhouse wrote the lyrics to this one. Leave it to Jane. Give me the moonlight, give me the girl. Lorraine, my beautiful Alsace Lorraine. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm on my way. Oh, Johnny, oh. Over there. That song has a death count. How many people did that get involved in World War I? Hundreds of thousands, probably. Yeah, let's go. They go wild, simply wild over me. I've looked up some of these. When Yankee Doodle learns to parlez-vous français. Well, that sounds like the worst song ever. Oh, 1943. How many hearts have you broken? I couldn't sleep a wink last night. Wow. They're either too young or too old. The merry-go-round broke down. Good title. Stop. You're breaking my heart. What year is this? 1937. My Little Buckaroo. How forgotten. So this is like a pre-internet artifact. What year is this from, I wonder? 53, probably. Yeah, it makes sense. Ends at 1952. Wow. Yeah, before the internet, if you were like, what's that song? American Society of Composers. Wow. Maybe what's like specialists would have used this? Maybe like DJs. I feel like a deep dive into this booklet could yield something really interesting. Now this is a zine, but here the lines are blurred. I don't really have a zine collection anymore. I gave away all my zines pretty much with few exceptions. And I had a huge, amazing Albuquerque zine collection. But then I thought, you know what? I don't want to just hoard this all in these boxes. And I stuffed little free libraries that young people visit full of them. Because that's what zine should be, where zine should be. But this is a cool zine that I always liked because like my favorite zines are local and hyper-local, but this is a database of national zines. And it's really cool when a zine like this emerges. And if you're super into zining, which I have been at times, on and off, and probably always will be, I just get an idea once in a while and I'm like, oh, look at this, I'm making a zine. Like when I did a series of 4 neighborhood newsletters for just my neighborhood, featuring just the history of these 14 houses on a part of a street. But who knows what xerography debt means. Oh, going broke at the copy shop, probably. Yeah, I'll break this out and look at it sometime. These were previously in the art section, but I thought, come join the booklets. Wow, just beautiful. Not like a lot of things I own, but I'm like, how do I not own this once I'm aware of it? I've got to keep it. And this one. Whoa. I could see these ending up getting framed, but like, I should read them. They're really cool. This was from such a great art show. I went to this with my then brother, now sister, and in Oakland or Berkeley. It was at the Berkeley Museum, and that was such a great show. Around that same time, I think at that same museum, they had original hobo tags from train cars. Like whole sides of trains were there. It was amazing. But this artist, it was a lot like Bernadette Meyer's Memory, of an amazing 1970 gallery piece documenting of a day. And it was just so many of these photos. I have another book from that exhibit also, but it's in black and white. Where would that be? Here it is. I was entranced by this show. Art is so great. I mean, this probably inspired me a lot. I've done a lot of projects that I think have echoed this. I was exposed to this project, and then I found out about the conceptual art movement and so much else. The Atrum Orbum Terrarum. Marjorie Diekman. Some booklets just end up as wall hangings, but there's a kitty. This could be an okay wall hanging, I guess. A little too blank for my taste. I was an origami obsessed kid. Now, I bet this isn't true origami because it probably uses rectangular paper. That's the extent of my snobbery as a kid. This was in the kids section before, but staple bound. There are some good tricks to making paper airplanes. Weighted tips, definitely. That's the big one. Teaching things from a pile. The courage to teach. Yeah, one of these days I'll try to convince myself that I actually feel compelled to teach. Probably means a lot that my title for so long has been substitute teacher. I'm a substitute for teaching. Because, yeah, I guess I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, I don't mind it, teaching, but it's a pretty thankless job. I do think it's important. I know teachers that talk about, like, it's my calling and stuff. I feel that way about writing. Teaching, I feel like these little brats. Not all the time, but sometimes. But the whole A Guide for Reflection and Renewal, I thought that sounded good. So if I ever get back into it, well, I'm going to be doing the licensure thing, so I guess I'll have to. Ugh. Where's my Medici family? I need a patron so I can just write. My needs are simple. But, you know, it's good to encourage the next generation and so on. Here's another paper airplane booklet. So, okay, 2 of these are paper airplane related. Ooh, what's that say? This is rare. Cedar Crest Book Exchange. I didn't know I had more than one book with that stamp on it. It was a very ephemeral bookstore that was only around for like 1 year of my adolescence. Ugh, we took it for granted. Should have been there all the time. Wow, so I still have a couple books from there. That's cool. This one looks like it involves cutting the paper too. Further deviation from purism, but, you know. The other day I drove by some homeless people, and one of them was flying a paper airplane over and over, and they were walking to it and picking it up and following along. And I was happy for them that they were experiencing a little bit of fun, because their lives looked horrible otherwise. Origami. My obsession as a kid. So me, a little American white kid from Arizona in Austria, living in Vienna, Austria. My best friend was a Jewish Austrian kid named Philippe, and we were both obsessed with the Japanese art of paper folding and had like 50 books apiece on the subject and just were constantly folding and learning new stuff for 3 years of my life. I remember going to the fall of the Berlin Wall with my mom and then brother, and we were in Austria, and I was doing origami the whole time. But origami is amazing, and true origami is really something beautiful and pure. I mean, I like all the tricky stuff with different pieces of paper, and sure, and expand and be avant-garde and have cutting and stuff, but then it like evolves into something else. The origami that I really deeply love and admire most is when it's just a square piece of paper and there's no cutting involved, because that's just incredible. You know, the 2 sides should be different colors. Classic origami paper. But it was so satisfying. There's some origami moves that are just like chef's kiss to perform, like the angelfish, where suddenly it just comes to life when you pull the 2 sides apart, or the water balloon bomb, the water bomb that involves inflating it and suddenly it's a cube. There, look at that. Everyone loves that one. I can still do that one. I had a really ragged, interesting young journey with origami. It was so much of my early life. There's still a few origami books kicking around, I believe. That's a good one. Oh, and these Dover ones are amazing. This Origami for the Enthusiast. So that was the first origami book I got, and it's so challenging. for the most part. It's really, really hard. And then I also later got this book called Origami for Beginners. So after I had messed with this for months and months, Origami for Beginners just suddenly like taught me all the basic stuff that I hadn't known before I started and attempted the ones in here. Why I stuck with this for so long despite knowing that. Look how, that's like the worst binding in the collection. These need taped up so bad. These were in the young readers section until recently. As you can tell, the booklets section. Is this a booklet? Well, it's staple bound. I'd call that a staple bound book, really. You know, you'd think it's the worst binding, but spiral binding exists, so. Talking about for a book, because there's something beautiful in shelf IDing, you know? Knowing what you got, what's there. But also, you know, put it out there. It's like a cool band releasing a single or a double single instead of an album or an EP, because they're like, let's just get this out there. We're always evolving. Here's where we're at now. Okay, this could be in the reference section, and I believe was before. Maps. Okay, note to self. Ugh, how can I remember that I have this? When will I even need it? It's just kind of a beautiful document. Rand McNally, desk reference. That's cool. I once went to a map headquarters in Maine where they had Earth of the world's largest globe. It was the Delorme Maps Company. And that was really interesting because we had just walked up the length of the East Coast and we stood there and looked at the part of the Earth we had walked on the globe, and it was like nothing. Like we had just walked so much. Like, here's a map of the world. We had just walked like here to here. It was a lot, but you know, it was a good reminder that the Earth is really big in its way compared to us. I love stuff like this. I love maps, even though I've probably been directionally challenged my whole life. When I was a kid on a family vacation, my parents got me a colorful hat so I wouldn't get lost. You could see me from the hotel balcony. Maps are cool, you know. Oil spill disaster in the Gulf. Yeah, you know, I felt like when I saw this book, I was like, I just need to have that in the collection because it's quickly getting memory hold. If that even happened, but I was watching that live feed for days and it was horrifying. Just here's more oil gushing into the Gulf. It's like killed a coast essentially. And so yeah, that's, you know, perfect booklet section book. Maybe I'll read that someday. Probably if it's relevant to something I'm writing. I do mention it in one essay. I'll read it sometime. Maybe I'll just need something cheery for a hike. No, JK. Hey, here's a United States History Atlas. This is cool. This is from a teacher's free pile too. Sometimes you go to free piles and you just want so badly to find anything, especially if you're seeing them day after day at a job or something, and there's never anything good, but you're like, I guess I'll take this. But I mean, this is a good thing to have. Book of Maps. Is it as satisfying as some great novel? No. To the tiny book section you go. Theatrum Orbum Terrarum. Orbis Terrarum. Overseen by your god, sweet pea. Booklets. But here's the thing. That's not all the booklets. I know, this is crazy, but there's actually 5 more booklet sections in this place. Let's give a quick overview, since I think we've looked at most of them already. First of all, here's a rather robust and surprising one. The Lake Powell Glen Canyon shelf, that bottom shelf there. Subject of many videos. I think there's a spiral bound one. I guess that is good for what it was, a guidebook to be used when boating on a lake. So I can't fault it for it, but it just never looks great on a shelf, I think. Though some might say it adds a little stitch of variety here and there. You also have to know what it is. But here we have, this was like given out to tourists around Glen Canyon, Lake Powell. At some point, maybe when I was there, maybe later. But yeah, I canoed around the circumference of Glen Canyon, or of Lake Powell in Utah and Arizona, a 2,000 mile almost shoreline, and back in 1999 and 2000. My paddle painted on by my young daughter. Lake Powell is just incredible. The most beautiful reservoir in the world, but now it's more than half gone because of climate, water allocations. I'm very invested in the topic, plus I spent much of the early 2000s years trying to write a book about that canoe trip, and it was really kind of my writing boot camp school, and I talk about that some when looking at this section. This is a magazine that has a great article on this wild cult in San Juan County with a woman prophet. And you know that rock at the start of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade? She predicted that Jesus would appear on the top of that thing, and she would be the prophet and lead them on to glory. That's the thing. You can't say specific dates. That's culting 101. You can't, That's how Mormonism's gotten away with it for so long. But it was a real stumbling block for Seventh-day Adventists for a long time. Mary kept being like, or was that her name? On this date, Jesus will return. Buy your ascension robes. Can't do that. People will get disappointed. This is by Stan Jones, Mr. Lake Powell. That's Boundary Butte up there on the Utah-Arizona border. Stan Jones was so interesting because he was so excited about exploring this place that was like totally artificial. He was like exploring the shoreline over and over in motorized boats as the lake level rose and filled. And said he was often the first person into some of these canyons, or the first in centuries. And he was a great guy, and I enjoyed my correspondence with him before he died and getting to know him a little. Mr. Lake Powell. His map, I think, is in my closet. Oh yeah, this is what's this? This is one of those, like, you see these at marinas, for boaters to buy. And it's good. There should be things like this out there so that people know, hey, this is like a special place, and don't take it for granted and treat it well. Don't treat it like a big toilet, bathroom, like a lot of tourists do. It's crazy. During my 6.5-month canoe trip around this thing, I mean, look at this place. What? Even haters of the reservoir are like, scenic. But also, as Edward Abbey said, the Taj Mahal would look beautiful, half covered in water too. But it's so interesting because the place now is like a double lost world, at least in its northern half. I've been there recently, last year, and Lake Powell eclipsed Glen Canyon and buried it beneath water, and buried 2 towns up in that area. And now a new Glen Canyon has emerged and eclipsed Lake Powell, and it's like, how much, complete transformation and loss of identity can a place have? I remember walking around Lone Butte, this little rocky island down at the south end of the lake, and there was just like a little tiny beach, just room enough for my canoe, and seeing all this houseboat graffiti and thinking someday this is going to be as weird an artifact as anything from ancient times now, because it's going to be way high up on this rock. And yep, that's how it is now. Superman 3 and Superman 4 also, which I think uses footage from Superman 3, has a lot of Lake Powell footage in it, surprisingly. I rewatched that recently. The original Planet of the Apes, of course, but it turns up everywhere. Suddenly I'm watching some superhero thing, and suddenly there's beautiful Navajo Mountain. I think I'm actually going to move this to the southwest section. It's just kind of a different area, though I have written about this in some of the same things as Glen Canyon, Lake Powell. Canyon de Chelly is just its own distinct place. This is where the Navajo had the last stand with Kit Carson. And it's a beautiful, amazing place. It's also been in a Jeep Cherokee commercial with Jeeps on top of Spider Rock there. So moving this over here, and we'll look at it again in 1 second. I don't know, I don't really like that. Stay with the Lake Powell books because you're geographically adjacent to the area. Working at a wilderness camp last summer, I went to both Glen Canyon and Canyon de Chelly. They were really close to each other. This is not staple bound, but here it is hanging out with the other booklets, because this is a photocopied, privately published Boy Scout book that I was lucky enough to copy. I loved this clamp binding. I wish that still existed. You could write something on it if you wanted to. It's my favorite binding, and it was totally replaced with the far inferior spiral binding. I guess it doesn't hold open as well, but it's just so clean and nice. And you could take any out-of-print thing and make yourself a book that you could have and keep as a reference or resource. See you in the New Mexico section. This one's small, so I'm going to go send it to live with the booklets in the drawer. Mine, stay with your friends. Over here, here's the Southwestern booklets. 1 but 2 beautiful copies of Poisonous Dwellers of the Desert. Tag yourself. And one of them. 50 cents. It was a good old time in life when you could just have 50 cents and go buy a booklet on scorpions. Oh, this is a fantastic geography book. Geology book. It's really useful. Taught me about hoodoos. Teaches you about all the different landforms. As Gary Snyder said in his poem, What You Should Know to Be a Poet. I'm paraphrasing here. Something about rocks, the names of plants. You got to know the basics. Yeah. And all these things are united by the booklet. What is the booklet? What is its form? Not quite enough for a book? The easiest, simplest way to get out something of local interest. Like here's a very local interest one. Oatman, Arizona. Bought this as a tourist driving through that area. Site of a massacre. The story of the Oatman girls. Wild donkeys still roaming the area. Very picturesque, scenic, Arizona highways type town. Oh, booklets, you're so humble. And yet you contain so much knowledge. Those are Life magazines up there. Not quite a booklet, but maybe we'll do a magazine chapter sometime. There was a magazine in that Lake Powell book section too, booklet section too. Look at those tufts. She does need to go outside probably more, getting no exercise. I've never been outside here. I just don't really trust the area for cats. I don't know. Spiral binding. Okay, there are found magazines over here. Some of them are staple bound, but I'm gonna leave those. Maybe I'll do a magazine video someday. I do have a small collection of magazines throughout the collection. Found The Believer, Life, New Mexico, East Mountain Living. Yeah, that could be a video. To bring this little kitten back into the story. Look at this cutie. What? You better find a home right away because you're so cute. I want you to live with me forever. Here are booklets from the literary side of things. We got Cliff Notes for the Scarlet Letter, Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, Ulysses, No Kitty's Day, Brothers Karamazov, Good Old Monarch Notes, Crime and Punishment, and these are interesting. That one out, it's just hanging out. At this cool series, I bought these at a yard sale. Buying these indirectly led to the writing of my first book. I bought them at a yard sale from this longtime mountain resident with deep family roots, Chris Hinzo, outside the home of his grandmother, former curandera, longtime curandera, Dulcinea Sanchez, who lived into her hundreds. He's in that little corner over there. Okay. Buying these got me talking with local history, and before I knew it, he was my first contact on writing a book about that area. He told me the books to look up, like Rebels on the Rio Grande and Study on San Antonio and Harris Canyon by Linda Cordell. It was very useful. I'll read this when I read Man with the Iron Mask in the Paperback Project. Zane Grey. I bet he's fallen in critical estimation since he was deemed worthy of a booklet. Ambrose Bierce, probably him too. Chekhov, no, he's awesome. Thomas Wolfe, cool. Dora Welty, right on. I knew someone that knew her as a teacher at a college in the South and said she was cranky. I'm like, you have anything good to say about you, Dora Welty? No, I just knew her. She's cranky. James Joyce. Jonathan Swift. Of course, John P. Marquand. You cannot convince me this guy wasn't the editor of this booklet series. Bernard Malamud. Maybe him too. These two were. Herman Melville. Okay. William Faulkner. Robert Louis Stevenson. Truly a precise, articulate writer. F. Scott Fitzgerald. We share a birthday. September 24th. Geoffrey Chaucer. Oh, I'm reading Canterbury Tales right now. Oh. Okay, you're staying out. You have been deemed worthy. Graham Greene. Oh, you're so awesome, dude. Everyone loves you. You're the best. Balzac. I'm going to read a Balzac book finally in the Paperback Project also. And he was an influence on Dostoevsky. Broke open the psychological novel, I hear. Some oversized art stuff. This was the booklet. It was a facsimile of the original one that came up with Harry Smith's Anthology of American Folk Music box set, which I love. I used to say it was the only box set I could sing along to all of. It's incredible. Those songs are burned deep into me. If I have patriotism for America, it's through that music and music like that. Like, them's the sounds of the hills and hollers. This was a beautiful art project done by a friend of mine, Jenna, that I haven't seen in a long time. Looked at it once. Maybe it doesn't count. It's got a binding. Oh, still. It's worth spending time with. It's cool. This was sent to me by another cool friend that I've lost touch with. Cool artsy magazine. Oh, it's from Jesse. Yeah, okay. Maybe I should look everybody cool up in my life again and be like, what's up? Also from the Anthology of American Folk Music. Like, I don't have the box anymore. I didn't want to hold on to it. It was all water stained. But I wanted to keep the literature. It's kind of interesting. Glad to have it. Staple-bound booklets. Remember our theme here. here. Maybe booklet has nothing to do with the height and width. Map book is what I would call this. But yeah, map books could probably be their own video. But anyway, that's another booklet section. One other Dostoevsky booklet I just found, The Grand Inquisitor. This is an excerpt from the Brothers Karamazov, and I think a cool Dostoevsky collector artifact. Stones of Thought with an introduction by Anne Fremantle. First remember seeing this at 14 Hamlin Street in Cambridge, Massachusetts in my friend Rob Johansson's collection. I thought, I gotta give me one of those. Not that it's my favorite part of the Brothers Karamazov or anything, but it is a really compelling speech. And it's interesting, and it's memorable, and justifies the space it takes up. And Ivan is such a great character. That book just hits so universally because Ivan's the intellect, Alyosha's the spirit, and Dmitri is the body. Whereas Smerdyakov, their half-brother, unacknowledged, illegitimate half-brother, who's their servant, represents the cast out and the obscure, dispossessed and disenfranchised. The 1984 printing of the 1950s booklet. Okay, that's fine with me. I've got a little Dostoevsky booklet section. New Mexico's got some shelf-maxed shelves, like those two are as full as they can get. I love it. Oh my god. Got some magazines and maps over here, but it's got some booklets too. This cat is deep in dreamland. You walking between the worlds, Coraline's cat style. That's a lot of booklets. Ghost Sites of Southwest New Mexico. Great booklet, led me to some stuff. University neighborhoods of, oh yeah, this is great for history of the University, UNM area neighborhoods, which I've lived in before, and so this was great to know. Like I found out that somebody who had lived in the house I had lived in the front room had died of scarlet fever in 1870. Pretty wild. And that the house was the manager's house for the apartment complex next door in the 1940s. You're so cute. You're cute too. You don't have to hide out here. You need to drink water and food. Thank you for not hissing at her, at least, sweetie. Or hunting her. Him. Whoever. That's a cute cat. Daughter of this cat. What else we got here? El Morro. This national monument is of big importance to my family personally. My sister Leanne, who died in 2001, loved it, and my brother Rob talked about it at her funeral. And how she was so moved by our niece Kindred, who was little at the time, saying this, while she played with sand, and just marveled at everything around her. And that contrasted with her sister's depression, I think was just really powerful. I've since been back, and this is a few times, and it's great. I love El Morro. It's just this rock out in the desert. It's the first thing people hit back in the day. Oñate wrote his name on it in 1605. I think the inscription I found at the north end of the Sandias is from 1581 and older than this, but I've never been able to get it certified. Malpais is near there. This is volcanic badlands with some arches like Ventana Arch. Released antelope from 1930s experiments. Really beautiful, truly forbidding desert. Scorched volcanic stuff, and recent enough lava rock that it figures into local lore. Santa Fe Trail. I love these like state parks booklets. They're great. See, that's what a booklet's perfect for. Oh, this is the west side of Albuquerque, Petroglyph National Monument. Now you can get photos with one of these in the foreground and suburbs in the back out there. There's another one on Petroglyph. That's an amazing place. I love it. It's one of the best places in the world for millipedes. You into millipedes? West side of Albuquerque is sun-blasted. But it's also where the volcanoes erupted back 200,000 years ago, and the lava stopped and became mesas. It's crazy. You go in the right area, Pajarito Mesa, and it's the largest off-the-grid community in America. Only recently did the firefighting department assign addresses to everything, finally. Fire department. So I have a lot of books on the penitentes. Here's a booklet from 1968. Penitentes are a really interesting penitential group that whips themselves and hangs themselves on crosses, etc. Much more common back in the day. If you ever watched the infamous Z monster movie Track of the Moon Beast, there's a song by this guy Frank Larrabee, and he sings California Lady. It's actually a good like 70s country rock jam, and but he was a real activist for his little community that he lived in, Corrales, just north of Albuquerque, and he helped build the library, and there's a picture of him in here. And my podcast brought that movie back to the Guild Theater, maybe for the first time ever. And we had Frank Larrabee come out, but first we had to find him. So we went all over Corrales. We went to every bar there and public area where people hung out, and finally found someone that knew him who agreed to give our information to him. He's all, Frank will contact you if he wants to. And he did, and he brought his whole family to it and heard a local musician play a cover of his song and watched the movie and had a Q&A afterward. But he really did a ton of fundraising back in the day for the Corrales Library. There's a wing of it named after him, Frank Larrabee. So that's cool to have this. This is from a booklet from Tinkertown up in the mountains. This ex-carny built this amazing folk art paradise. And this is a cool account of it all. It's a really interesting story, told well in the book Leaving Tinkertown by Tanya Ward. One of his kids is Jason Ward, who was in the band Sad Baby Wolf, an excellent local Albuquerque band. The Penitentes of the Southwest. Another one on the Penitentes, very interesting. Another one, The Enigma of the Penitentes. Booklets, you know. Bookapelli, Casanova of the Cliff Dwellers. Oh yeah, that's a wild story. I wrote an article once that was like the sordid history of Kokopelli and about all his shenanigans, and the flute in some of the myths being a detachable penis, and him being symbolic of the peddlers that went from town to town. There's some really interesting things about Kokopelli. One of the more common rock art figures, certainly in modern depiction. I have seen actual Kokopellis carved into rocks around Santa Fe, but here's something else from Petroglyph National Monument, Boca Negra Canyon. This is one of the smaller areas there, and it's kind of a cool little side area. My kids did the Junior Ranger program there one time. Oh, George O'Keeffe, Ghost Ranch Museum and more. Look at this beautiful book. Please do not feed your fingers to the animals. Their diet is carefully prepared. This is a beautiful booklet. Hey, look at this. I have two of that Penitentes one. I'll get one of these to tie, my friend. Oh, look at this. Los Remedios de la Gente. A compilation of traditional New Mexican herbal medicines and their use. That's awesome. I should read this. Leave this one sitting out. This I have read 2 or 3 times. Ocupin was one of the lost indigenous names from the Pueblo people for the Sandia Mountains. It means giant turtle. And this is such an interesting book. In part, Sandias are my beautiful mountains that I love so much, east of Albuquerque. Not a tattoo guy, but if I did have tattoos, there'd be some form of that mountain range. That's how much I love it. My one published book is Towns of the Sandia Mountains. But this is a beautiful, out-of-print, small press 1970s book on the Sandias. And, you know, they're a really amazing mountain range. They're so close to a major city. They get millions of visitors a year because of the tram. And yet, there are true wildernesses there. There's towns on one side of them, but there are wildernesses there. I wrote an article on a guy who was lost for 3 weeks in the 80s with a head injury and broken glasses. And love the Sandias. They're wonderful. I need to get back up in there. Love those mountains. Every time I hike up in the mountains, I feel just better. Okay, speaking of zines, like I said, booklets are zine adjacent. Sometimes this was like a book, I feel like. It grew from a zine, and I wrote for 2 or 3 of the issues. I wrote some of the synopses, just kind of community building. It's called the Albuquerque Underground. The zine community in Albuquerque, I really had some fun moments in it. Now we have an annual festival here, and it's kind of a big deal. But I think I was the last person to do a survey of the Albuquerque zine scene before the Zine Fest phenomenon. And I found like 20 or 30 zines and wrote a zine about them all that I still have digital versions of somewhere. But then Maria Aaron Jones founded the Albuquerque Zine Fest, and now, there would be hundreds of zines. But I also don't enjoy the scene like I used to in the same way. I mean, just personally, because what I go to zines for is like a post-commodity mentality. Like, this is true community being traded, you know, at just like a really interesting, obscure level, just passing things around through boxes and leave piles and so on, you know. I like that idea of post-commodity. But anyway, it's so nicely produced. You got to keep stuff like this. Kept it. And I think I might have some writing in it. This is an incredible artifact. This is probably a reprint, but it's a 1950s kids. It is a reprint. Second printing 1971, first printing 1955. Well, this is probably a 1971 or even later facsimile edition of it. But I did think there was something like that, or maybe it's the 70s one. But this is incredible. These little towns up in the Sandias, believe it or not, this was a primary source for my book, Towns of the Sandia Mountains, because all the little towns profiled in here by these school kids in the 50s, like they weren't all that well documented. They're tiny little places. This is I mentioned it in my very limited selected bibliography at the end. I mean, if you read all these books, you would really have a good grasp of Sandia history. I feel like this is a great collection here. Children in all the mountain schools. Fiestas in our mountain villages. Albuquerque Public Schools, 1955. Yeah. This is incredible. I mean, you know, I love how I got into history via really local stuff. It really like makes it all feel like part of something to me. Very, like, just putting that book together, it was like meeting all these people and just looking through their photo albums, and I'm like, this is history, just people's lives. How could you not be excited by the big story and just everyone? So that's cool. Oh, this is from El Moro too. El Moro's awesome. You know, just El Moro is great. It's like you'll see the oldest inscriptions, beautiful petroglyphs. It is awesome. I love El Moro. This is on Paco. Now there's a fancy development and golf course called Paco. It means root of the cottonwood. But back in the day, it was a pre-Spanish pueblo. And where there was Spanish like overlap, there was a church built there for a little while. And Spanish contact often led to collapse of these groups. They would just scatter. But a lot of the Paco descendants, I've written a couple articles drawing heavily from this. A lot of the Paco descendants have ended up at Santa Ana Pueblo, which now has a really big music venue and casino. Genetically, they've been linked there. It's crazy. You can tell all this stuff from bones about like what diseases they suffered from. I'm not an archaeologist, you know, but this is what they call monographs. So some booklets are monographs. It's like a professional thing. I had to track this down via the internet. Quarry is this incredible ruins. Was it built with Native American slave labor? I mean, yeah, but it is so staggering when you see these. It's like this is one of the seven wonders of New Mexico. Their quarry ruins are, whoa, they'll just silence you. Huge slatey red brick ruins. I mean, this doesn't give you any sense of scale. That's like several stories right there. It's like a castle around you. And there's so many parts to it. And the Pueblo Revolt happened there, and it's like nothing else. But my daughter Anodyne, when she was still in school, this had to have been several years ago, and I think she was in middle school. No, she was in high school. This might have been early high school, but I remember all the kids being younger. But we had this, I think it was just me and Anodyne. We drove out on this snowy day to the quarry ruins, and it was totally illegal to be there. And we just parked and walked and walked all around. We were the only people there. We didn't touch anything or take anything or hurt anything, I promise. But it was just silencing. And thinking about like the oppression that happened there is pretty wild too. And just the eeriness of, I mean, ancient cathedrals were already meant to evoke the divine everythingness, isness, something, to awe the peasants. But that was a really interesting day. And then we stopped at this restaurant in the Ponderosa Steakhouse in Irisari, New Mexico, way out in the middle of nowhere. And the snowstorm was like starting to shut the roads down. We barely made it in there. There was a woman playing folk music covers on her guitar, and she had showed up as entertainment, but we were the only customers there, me and Anodyne. And Anodyne really dug the music and shared that she was a musician too and wrote her own songs. Anodyne played 2 women's music festivals when she was 9 and 10. I mean, very talented musician. And there was just like the cook and a server. And footnote, later on, I heard that the cook at that place was arrested for being a creepy predator of children. So, weird footnote to that story. Adds a lot to the tone, though. Anyway, the Quarry ruins of the Manzano Mountains in New Mexico, or beyond them, incredible. Yeah, and this is an interesting history. You're so cute, kitty. Okay, you want me to open the blind? Actually, there's some more on the New Mexico shelf I just found. Look, I have 3 of this brief history of Los Terranos. Suppose I should give those away. I'm trying not to be well, they don't take up much space. But Terranos I spent so much time in the Terranos Park next to my kids' elementary school. For years, I was one of the park parents. And it was really interesting reading in this book that the school used to be like an all-girls school with a giant wooden cross in front of it at one point. Probably when the tree that still grew there in front of it for a while, until they rudely chopped it down. That like later became my kid's school, one of these. There were actually some recognizable buildings there. But it also talks about how the area would flood a lot because of the river, and there were these yazoos, these big flooded areas that people would boat around. That's why they didn't pave the nearby street Rio Grande for a long time, till the 30s. It's also where a lot of prohibition booze trading went on. But this is a really cool booklet, and Albuquerque is composed of all these different villages that were absorbed as Albuquerque grew. Terranos is one of them. I got 3 copies of this because they were being given out at the community center there where my kids went for a long time. But I'll add one of these to Ty's pile. I think he already has it, but still. Jim White. This is the first white cowboy to discover Carlsbad Caverns, though it was known by local natives. But Carlsbad is amazing. New Mexico has got some things going on. I mean, if you've seen a cool cave in a movie, odds are you've seen Carlsbad. It's like, there's some amazing stuff here. And this is a pretty historic, it looks like a facsimile of an old booklet, or maybe it's the old booklet. 1998. But yeah, a lot of it is like 1932. Look at that. But he like ran around in a panic when he first went down there. Imagine looking around and you're like, what have I discovered, quote unquote. He was just investigating where some bats came from. Cavern map. I have many memories as a kid eating chicken strips in the cavern lunchroom. They've recognized that that's not the best environmental practice and really minimize all that stuff now. Look at this kitty. Are you snuggled under that blanket? That's very cute. I'm just worried you're not drinking any water. These are detailed street maps of the mountain towns east of Albuquerque. This has been so useful to me in my writing at different times. So useful. When I was in high school, I got up to some shenanigans here and there. And some of them involved this remote street called Lexico Road that was like a series of unending hills with a straight down road, and you could catch air by jumping them. And we got into some big trouble one time doing that, and I ended up writing about it. And this thing had the maps for it. It's crazy. Macintosh. I once biked there accidentally because I biked the wrong way. A lot of memories from this area. Okay, that's why I have that. Just chilling today, kitty. So some booklets are zines, some are magazines, some are monographs, some are little regional histories, some are books sold only at certain places, site-specific locations. Dang, Prismo, I've never seen you sleep this soundly. Giveaway pile. Adding to currently reading. So I'm currently reading this. I don't really have any booklets in the bedroom, but I do have one Cliff Note thing on Camus in the writer only section, Monarch Notes. There might be some staple-bound books here in these kids' books, yeah. But it's kind of a different world when you get into kids' books. Should we look at those? We'd also be leaving nonfiction. Have you noticed pretty much all the booklets we've looked at have been nonfiction? That's a pretty big commonality. Did I selectively gather these myself? Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe it's more common. Nonfiction has this impulse, like, I gotta share this. We used to have some fictional zines. And there's magazines like One Story. No, those are nonfiction. All right, folks, that's the booklets of the collection. You know, what is this dumb channel? Who cares? It's so stupid. Who cares? No, but maybe we'll get at something, you know? I do think of the collection as like a bonsai tree, always being pruned and shaped. and connected to everything around it. And so we'll see. Maybe when I've described this whole thing, it'll be something when looked at from outside. Maybe it already is or something. I don't know. It's a weird attempt. I was watching someone's booktube video the other day, and it was very good, but she just had like 3 shelves. And so she was talking about those, and I liked the mix of personal and subject matter and things. I like hearing about people's book collections. But I was like, what I'm doing here is like a little bit more extensive, describing all the books I have. That's not the core of the channel. The core of the channel is reading all the paperbacks in the paperback case, but I also wanted to post something every day just for the lulz, or for kind of find the channel's groove and purpose and give an idea of what the whole collection is. The fact is, there's a lot of books to look at. Still got the New Mexico section. What else? The rest of the kids section, chapter books, the kids picture books. Some new sections like comics and utility that have emerged. Comics are just a shelf. Same with utility. Video and magazines. Displayed books. Files. Lots of trash. Anyway, booklets. What do you think about them? How far would you go for your love of booklets? And why aren't we all asking ourselves the tough questions? Hey, Samostat, people that bristled during some chapters of the USSR, that's how they circulated their questioning of things. The power of a leaflet, ever since the invention of the printing press. I gotta get me some Incanabula, some framed 1st century of the printing press stuff. I would love that on the wall. I would just stand there and look at it all the time. I'd like to have something on the wall from every century going back to that. Someday I'll have more money to put into home decor. Right now I have none. Which reminds me, if you like this channel and you want to support it, blah, 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 blah. I'm avoiding doing the ads thing. Because YouTube won't let me. Haha. But, it all goes to keeping these kitties housed and keeping the books dry, keeping myself alive. I don't know. One time I sold a bundle of books through this channel. That was awesome. That's something I'm always willing to do. You see some books you like? Hit me up. If you'd like me to fill a box of books just for you, just, do the Radiohead In Rainbows thing and PayPal me what you can. I'll send you something. PayPal at Michael Farrell Smith. But it's channels like this that bring you the hard-hitting content that you really don't need, but that might mildly interest you and make you sometimes say, huh. And maybe there's some weirdo, voyeuristic value to it all also. Like, what is this weird guy that obsesses over his book collection and his cats? He's dangerous. We should watch him and just make sure that he's not, like, stockpiling anything besides books. Booklets. Maybe it says something about their genre, too, that they're woven throughout some of the collection, Southwestern, Lake Powell Canyon, New Mexico, literary. It's a pretty eclectic little gathering of rare old things and primary founding documents and origami books and airplane books and something about an oil disaster. All right. Remember, everyone, the world is a circle without a beginning and nobody knows where it really ends. If you know what that's from, you're cool. This has been Booklets. Booklets, sweet pea. Booklets. Booklets, Prismo. Booklets.